Back to hardball. For 2 days now, Mitt Romney's response to the violence in Libya and Egypt and his decision to try to score political points on it has earned him criticism, even from some in his own party. But how about the things Romney didn't say? Namely, why hasn't he condemned the brutally offensive film that was at least partly responsible for this violence in the Middle East? Well, the Washington Post editorial board wrote, quote, today, the movie is a despicable piece of bigotry. It was striking that Mr. Romney had nothing to say about such hatred directed at a major religious faith. With me now is the Washington Post columnist and associate editor David Ignatius and Robin Wright from the Woodrow Wilson Center. I like both of you because you're great people, but also you know the Middle East, and you've been over there and you know how a good part of this world is Islamic. Now, the United States isn't largely Islamic. We're largely Christian. But the fact is, there's a big part of the world that just is Islamic. Wanting to pick a fight with Islam is insane. There's 1 billion Islamic people in the world born that way. There's 350,000 Arabs born that way. Why would you want to make them hate you? My question is, why did Mitt Romney at some point in the last 48 hours say, I hate people that want to stir up trouble between the two largest religions? Your thought?
Well, I think
why does he say something?
I think there are a couple of things. First of all, you have this attack on the American embassy that in some ways is eerily reminiscent of 1979 and the takeover of the American embassy in Tehran. And this was an election that hinged in large part in Ronald Reagan's defeat of Jimmy Carter on how that crisis was handled, how it dragged out. And the Republican Party may be calculating that they're waiting to see how this plays out, if it escalates, particularly Friday in the Muslim day of prayer. But there's that other domestic component of his own religious right within the party. And there may be many who are sympathetic to anti-Muslim sentiment or who are skeptical that the cultural gap can be bridged. And so I think there are a number of factors, but I think it's...
You mean the right wants to go to war with Islam? That's what you're saying?
Well, not necessarily, but I think there is a religious right that is very suspicious of other religions.
And therefore, what do they want to do about it? What do they want our policy to be in regard to Islamic reality in the world? What's their goal? To get rid of it?
No, but I think there are those who are still deeply suspicious, 30 years after the takeover of the American embassy, about whether the bridge can be crossed between the Islamic world and the West. And there are some who fundamentally just believe that the cultural divide is too deep ever to be healed.
You know, David, you watch politics here and you watch it around the world. The endless drumbeat in this country of dog whistles and everything else about Barack Obama may be a Muslim himself. The other day they were calling him sympathizing. You heard it from... what's his name? I can never get the name right. Priebus, the Republican chair, Reince Priebus. But he went out the word saying the president sympathizes with the attackers against our embassy. The same that he was echoing basically what Mitt Romney had said a few minutes before when he put out the word. This idea that somehow Obama sympathizing with our enemies has been a relentless little thing out there using the argument, well, he's not really one of us, he's one of them. But now you have the problem of an active front now, a heated front in Benghazi and in Cairo. What is the argument between the two parties and how to address those situations?
Well, you know, the serious argument that Mitt Romney should be having and that I hope we'll have down the road in the debates is what is a strong America all about in the 21st century, and especially now in the midst of these Arab revolutions? What's the right policy for the United States to adopt? And Mitt Romney has an argument. He did make it today in a more temperate set of remarks where he basically said to the country that Barack Obama is Jimmy Carter, that American weakness has brought on this level of disorder in the world, and that, as Robin said a moment ago, this is 1979 all over again. I think Barack Obama can rebut that. I think that he can say that if, to the extent that we're going to war with the Muslim world, we're just digging ourselves in deeper. I'll cite one thing for you, Chris. When I read Osama bin Laden's private communications that were taken out of his compound when he was killed, one of the things that was most striking was how upset he was that Barack Obama had stopped talking about a war on Muslims and had started talking about a war on al-Qaeda. It drove bin Laden crazy to the point that he wanted to change al-Qaeda's name. He wanted to rebrand it. Now, that's the clearest testimony you could possibly get from Osama bin Laden that trying to do this divisive thing, war on Muslims, just plays into the extremist's hands. You have it from the man himself. So what more can you say?
Robin, I think that was great reporting there. I didn't know that before, that the bad guy of all bad guys said this is the smart strategy from America. Don't focus on Islam, which will just stir up an East-West war. You'll lose or you'll never end. focus on the bad guys themselves. And then Obama not only talks that way, he's out killing these guys, including the guy who rendered that opinion, bin Laden.
Yes, and the Obama administration has tried to make that point in the campaign. General Motors is still alive.
How can you say it's weak? He had Robert Gates in there, Leon Panetta in there. He's been using drones, killing one after another. He knocks off I don't see anything to justify the word weak. Maybe you could argue after Desert One, Jimmy Carter looked weak because the mission failed. It was a horrendous failure, but what's the point now?
Look, this is also a particularly delicate moment. Everyone's very concerned within the State Department and intelligence community about what happens elsewhere in the Islamic world. You've already seen the protests in Libya and Egypt expand to whether it's Kashmir or Pakistan, Tunis, and the danger that this becomes much bigger and that the kind of conciliatory position that the Obama administration has taken might make it look weak down the road, when in fact it has been strong.
Certainly you have to attack anti-Islamic stupidity. It's coming out of Los Angeles or the Reverend, what's his name, Terry Jones, or any of these characters. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton did that today. She took the opportunity to denounce the offensive video coming out of L.A. and to say that Romney hasn't done so. Let's watch the Secretary.
Let me state very clearly, and I hope it is obvious, that the United States government had absolutely nothing to do with this video. We absolutely reject its content and message.
Why doesn't Romney say that? Would that offend one of his people? Who would be offended if Mitt Romney were to come out and say, I may disagree with the president on foreign policy, but these people that keep stirring up wars by burning Koran, flushing them down the toilets, peeing on them, whatever they're doing lately, it's nothing but killing American soldiers. David.
Chris, Romney has painted himself into a corner as the no apology guy, Mr. Never Back Down. There are a lot of people on the Republican right who, are bought into this idea that there's a clash of civilizations going on. You see this every day on the internet, and I guess Romney, in a kind of political opportunist's way, doesn't want to offend people who are going to be supporters of his. But I do think he's got to break out of that. He just, every time a foreign policy issue comes up, he hits a clinker, and he just comes across as a guy who doesn't have a feel for the way the world works, who talks in sound bites and epithets, and I think it's going to hurt him. We'll see in the debates whether he can form a coherent argument about American power and how the world works, but he ain't done it so far.
Yeah, he looks clumsy and slow when it comes to any of these crises, and he keeps putting his foot in his mouth when he's gone abroad, and I think that's a problem for him. Wait and see is not going to work in his favor on this very volatile issue.
It's one thing to be a robot, it's another thing to be a robot rigged for the right. Anyway, thank you, David Ignatius. Thank you, Robin Wright. I don't know if I like his networking and that brain of his.